In today's episode, we're having Stan, our CMO and co-founder. He's also a superstar in our community, and he's going to talk about marketing, his background, and the Broom Squad.
Broom Squad!
Hey Stan.
Hey Mehdi.
Super happy to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
With you and Shane, we are actually the three only foreigners in the company.
That's right.
And we have our own separate office from the others, where we speak English, and they speak Finnish.
Well, the rest of the people also know a bit of English, I must say.
Yeah, Finnish English, let's call it.
Finglish.
Finglish, yeah,
Yep.
That's a good way to put it. You have such an atypical background. Can you tell us a bit more about your early years? Because you were born in Riga from a Russian family.
Sure. So I was born in Riga, which is the capital of Latvia, and I lived there until I was 12. Then we moved to live in London, where I lived for 4 years, and that's where I kind of got my English. And it was kind of funny because nobody actually taught me. When I was back in Latvia, my English grades were the worst in class, and then I just hanged out with some kids during the summer, just on the playground, and somehow I knew English. So it kind of became somewhat semi-native, which is pretty funny.
And you have actually a pretty good British accent when you want to do it.
Well, when we go to London and all of a sudden my language a bit transforms. I don't know how that happens, but that's how it is. But anyway, lived in London until I was, I think, around 16. Then we moved back to Latvia, where I studied in a vocational school. It's the same they have in Finland, so it's like kind of high school, but you also learn some skills. Usually it's like auto repair guy or something, but I studied actually IT straight away there. And then, when I finished that, I applied to study in Finland, and I've been living in Finland for 8 years.
Pretty good.
Yep.
So can you tell us a bit more about your work experience before Surrogate? I know you started maybe a couple startups, and you worked at Tuxera, where you met your co-founders.
Sure.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, define work, because when I was already doing some hustle stuff back in London, like some of it barely legal, because but
you're Russian in London.
Yeah, because I'm Russian in London, so that's what you do. But yeah, I was like always doing some small stuff, like from I don't know, being sitting with some kid and getting paid for that, to I don't know, washing a car and other stuff. And then when I moved back to Latvia, I was actually working with my dad, so doing some family business, but also a lot of like these small jobs, like, hey, I need you to buy, somebody wants to buy a computer, and I advise and install the software, or I fix somebody's computer, or a lot of like these small jobs.
Yeah. So you always had this entrepreneurship mindset.
Yeah.
And then in Finland, after university, you what did you do? Did you start right away with the startup world, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so that started, I think, in my second year of studying here, and I was introduced to this one startup from Russia, and I kind of initially joined as doing some basic stuff, like more like marketing stuff, but eventually I was doing a lot of kind of CEO tasks, where I would kind of define what should we do as a company and which projects should we try, and also doing some business development, like talking with actual potential partners and clients, and actually also getting them. So yeah, it was always funny that I would join something on a minor role, and then I would end up doing much more than was my job description.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly what's happening here. You're supposed to do marketing, but you handle all the video aspects, all the hardware also.
The batteries, man.
The
That's
batteries,
my favorite.
yeah.
That's what you do at SurrogateTV when you're doing marketing. You go through the Google and you search for the fastest charging batteries of certain size.
Yeah, you're also an AliExpress expert.
And customs. If anybody needs some customs work, I can do that.
Obviously. So can you tell us when did you meet your co-founders, and how did this Surrogate journey started for you?
Sure. Well, how we met was actually at this company called Tuxera, and it was funny because when I joined Tuxera, my idea was that, okay, I'm done with the startup stuff for a bit. I need to relax, have a normal job, maybe learn something. But then I think a year after that, we were already working on this new crazy idea. So it was pretty funny. That's how it is. You don't really realize, but then all of a sudden you're back at the same entrepreneur somewhat mindset.
So at Tuxera, where you met your other co-founders, your job was to do PR. for a file system company? How do you do PR for a file system company?
Well, I mean, I always like doing explaining complex things in an easy way, and that's kind of what marketing does at tech companies. But Tuxera was definitely a challenge because it's a file system. It's basically something that nobody ever sees, and you don't even know usually that it's there. But what I like with the Tuxera story is that, it's a thing that is in most of phones, most of cars, most of TVs, and nobody even realizes. So that was an exciting kind of angle that I saw and I wanted to talk about. But the main part of how do you do PR for a tech company is you have to really try to understand the product at its basically every part of the product, and only then you can find an interesting story. And that's kind of another thing a lot of PR people do. They, you just write a press release and you send it to a bunch of journalists, and nobody obviously picks it up. So what you have to do is you have to understand who would be potentially interested in this story, and you have to kind of try and engage with them in advance, and you also have to write an interesting story, even if it's about file systems. I mean, I had interesting stories about file systems. We had an interesting post. If you Google why Android's phones slow down anywhere in the world, you will see my post there on the first page on top 2.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's again, it was about technical studying. I studied why.
Yeah.
I actually researched together with some of the colleagues how file systems affect phone aging. So, and that was a big thing. It's not your processor that gets older; it's your storage that makes your phone getting slow in 1 or 2 years, and that's the main factor. So that was, to me, it was mind blowing, and obviously that's why it was an interesting story.
So how does it feel to do PR for a file system company? And now going to promoting real-life games? Do you feel that it's much easier, more interesting, easier to sell? What's your opinion about that?
It's way different because what we have to do here is to basically tell you, hey, this is the next big thing. It's a new thing, and we kind of have to educate the market. So there are still a lot of challenges, kind of similar. With file systems, nobody knows about it. And also with our thing, because it's so new, nobody knows about it because they cannot. It's pretty mind-blowing. So educating the market is a very hard thing. Often you even show somebody the game, and they play it, and they're like, it's a video game. How do you do these graphics? They're pretty realistic.
Yeah, they don't realize it's
they
real
don't
life.
realize, yes. And it's the same with the press. You send them an email, you show them a video, and unless they have a call with you and you actually explain that, yes, this is how it works, this is a real thing, you're controlling a real robot thousands of miles away, it will be hard for them to grasp. So this is an interesting part for me of the journey, is trying to educate people that this is the next big thing.
Yeah. Can you tell us what you do at Surrogate? What's your mission? You're CMO and co-founder, but basically what exactly do you do?
Sure. So I guess my main tasks are making sure that our community is happy and growing, that we keep getting more users to play our games, and also that we are able to build a brand around what is Surrogate and also communicate it with people outside of the company.
Yeah. You're actually quite famous within the community. People love you. When you're on Discord, everyone joins the vocal chat.
I think it became a thing around the time we launched the pinball, because the game was always stuck, and they know I live nearby, and right when I'm about to go to sleep at midnight, there's a message, hey Stan, the ball is stuck. So there's I think there's at least 20 clips of me with a broom getting the ball out, or as they call it, it's the wand.
The wand,
yes.
Yeah. In our community, we have very special people who are called the Broom Squad. What happened there?
It's not just a group of people. It's a movement. It's a movement of people that respect the broom. And the story of that community kind of started when we launched our third game, Sumo Bots. And we had, I'd say, a missing feature in our game logic. So basically when the goal of the game is to be the last one standing, and the arena gets smaller and smaller and smaller because different pieces go down and down and down, and eventually there's no pieces left. But the middle piece actually stays. So if there's two people still somehow standing on this little tiny middle piece, then nobody wins. But since we host the game, we decided to interact with the game. So basically every time two people would stay on that center piece, somebody who is hosting the game would take an actual real broom, scare a bit the people, and if they still don't fight, they would take that broom and just mash it out from the arena. So
Yeah.
and whoever was the last one on the arena wins.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started. And every time somebody does it, the chat goes crazy. It's like broom, 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 broom. It's the broom. It's the broom. But then a lot of these people who actually were doing this thing, they somehow got together and they started making this movement. They started putting our logo with a broom behind, a lot of different collages with that broom, and they even have their own hashtag, which is Broom Squad for Life.
Wow.
So yeah, they have their own group. And
I missed that one.
and they and these
Yeah.
people are the closest
Yeah.
people in our community ever. I think they talk about everything.
Yeah.
Like everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I did some brooming action myself when I was surveying the game at some point. And what's funny is actually that people's reaction is amazing because they don't realize sometimes that the game is in real life. And all of a sudden, some new players just see a broom coming out of nowhere and they just lose their mind, like, what is happening there?
Yeah, but I guess when there's like a real person,
Yeah.
you get excited because,
Yeah.
you know, you never have a real person in a video game. Like,
Yeah.
it's just some bot or, you know. And here, all of a sudden, a real person interacts with a real thing on another part of the world
Yeah.
with you playing that game.
Yeah, through a screen.
And it kind of bends also the game logic, so that's the uniqueness, I'd say.
Yeah. From now on, how is your mission going to evolve, do you think, with the new games that are coming? We're launching many different projects at the same time right now. How do you see your mission evolving?
I think, like, leading this community and helping it grow is the main goal for me because we have so many amazing people and they are so proactive at suggesting us what to
Yeah.
do. They're actually managing a lot of our games and they organize stuff that maybe we should be making, but they have these great ideas and they actually want to pursue them and want to help us. So for me, the main goal is to encourage them to help us become what we want to become as a company.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your personal passions. So you started to play chess at a very young age.
That's right.
When did you start and what's your level?
When I went to school, on the first year, we had these hobby classes. And, you know, normal people would go to football hobby class
Yeah.
or volleyball hockey class. But my favorite one was chess. So that's where I kind of started it. And I got to a pretty high level. I think I have this second grade, which is like in chess, you first get 4, then 4.5, then 3, then 2, then 1, and then you become a master of sports candidate or something like that. I don't know
Yeah.
how to translate it in English, but yeah.
Okay.
So I was pretty good. If I would have pursued it more, maybe I would have been even better, or I would have some serious, I don't know, I would be in some serious championships. But then World of Warcraft and other video games came and
Yeah.
became a big part of that. So, and it's
Yeah.
basically the same. Chess is like video games before video games.
Yeah. Well, we can put it this way. What's your relationship today to video games? Because we have a lot of work. We also build our own games. Do you still play that much, and what kind of games do you play currently?
I don't play as much as before, especially not as during my university years.
Yeah.
But I try to play a little bit. It's a good distraction. It makes your mind still work, but it's on something else, so you kind of relax, you could
Yeah.
say. Right now I play a lot of, not a lot, but I play League of Legends sometimes, and now they have this Team Fight Tactics, which is pretty cool.
Ah, yeah, it's true. I saw you
Yeah.
play that a lot in the
Yeah,
US.
and now Warcraft 3 Reforged came out,
Yeah.
and even though it has the lowest ratings on Metacritic, it's one of my favorite
Yeah.
games, the original one, so I'm having a lot of fun. I already passed the original Warcraft 3 campaign, and I'm
Yeah.
on Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne, so let's
Okay,
see.
pretty good.
Yeah, we have a couple of weeks in February. Hopefully I'll pass it by the end of the month.
Yeah, that's and given all your history in games and what we do today, do you have an ideal game that you would love to see being developed here at Surrogate?
I think it's not in my head. It's somewhere out there. And the more games we build, the more we will understand what is the best way to use this mind-blowing technology where somehow you can control something in another part of the world and it feels like you're there.
Yeah, so you don't have a specific idea yet about what
I
would
don't
be your
have,
dream game.
but my thinking is that it's not inside of a room or an office, but it's outside in the wild, somewhere where anything can happen.
Yeah. The question everyone is wondering is, how old are you?
I'm 27,
Wow.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But some people in this company think that I'm in my 50s. the way I act is more like I'm in my 50s.
Yes. And Severi, our CTO, is in his 70s.
Yes, so I have like a more senior person. I'm like
On
the
top of it,
surrogate
yeah.
mother, and he's like the surrogate grandmother, because
Yes.
we both tell, you shouldn't do this, you should do that, clean, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Surprisingly, you also have hobbies outside of work.
That's true.
Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, as a gamer, yeah, you know, as a kid who was a gamer, you usually wouldn't have any hobbies. But my grandfather taught me a lot of fishing and sauna. So these are my like core typical Russian hobbies that I have. But then in my 20s, I started developing my own hobbies because I started to get a bit bored of video games. So now I do biking. I bike to a national park and back, which is a nice 5-hour drive. Then we do a lot of hiking nowadays. Hiking is pretty fun. You have this huge bag on the back of you, and you have to walk for 20 kilometers a day, and then you feel horrible, but it's a great journey. And now I'm becoming I'm getting a lot into cooking because I travel a lot, so I try a lot of different food, and it excites me to cook different type of cuisines.
You sound like a 40-year-old man.
Well, if we're talking about 40, I have some gray hair already. I'm getting bald, so I'm getting there. But there's talking about baldness, there's two type of bald people. You can either go all in and be like Jeff Bezos, you know, just shaves it all off. Or if you Google Elon Musk bald, you will see some amazing pictures. You can do hair transplants, and that's my long-term strategy. Sophisticated Stan.
Well, what do you like about Finland as a foreigner?
It's a good question. I like the culture because it's pretty similar to the Russian culture in a way that people are very direct. And then I also like how the cities are built because you have amazing public transport. If you're into biking, there's bike roads everywhere. So for me, it's pretty good. And also it's very safe. Like it's amazing how safe you feel when you go around the streets even at night. There's also a lot of nature, which you don't have in a lot of cities. Like I live 5 minutes from here, from this office, and I see at least 8 rabbits during going to work and back every day. Sometimes you go down to the parking lot and you see a fox out of nowhere, and that's like totally normal. So how also the Finnish cities are connected to the nature. So that's one thing I like.
If we go back to all the countries you visited so far, you went from Latvia to England to Finland. Do you still hope to see the sun one of these days?
Well, the problem is that I like winter a lot, and if I want to live in a place where there's winter, I have to be in the northern hemisphere, and there's not that much sun here in winter. That's just how it is. But here's a surrogate mother tip. Make sure to get your vitamin D, and you'll feel just great. You won't feel depressed, low energy. And the best part about winter is that the moment you get out of the house, if you're a lazy person like me, the moment you get out of the house, and you feel that it's -10, something very at the like a very base level of your brain, an instinct, a self-survival instinct will tell you, if you don't work, you'll die. And that is the best motivation factor to have in Finland. And for me.
Well, thank you, Stan, for telling us more about your background in today's episode, and I hope people will enjoy listening to this interview as much as I enjoyed interviewing you.
It was a pleasure being here, Mehdi.
Thanks.